Jason Short is P3 driving a McLaren. Dave B Racing from South Africa is P6. Toddy Mustang in Rettifilo Partenza is P2. Best lap is a 1:59.217. Wiremu in Curva Parabolica is third. Best lap is a 1:59.749. The qualification session is at Autodromo di Monza in Monza, MI, Italy. The race dictator from New Zealand in Rettifilo Partenza is first. Chris Buttett from New Zealand in Prima Variante is second. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is P4. The race dictator in second Curva di Lesmo is P1. Johnny Prince from New Zealand in Curva Biasone is sixth. Jason Short from New Zealand is P7. Wiremu in Rettifilo Partenza is P3. The race dictator from New Zealand in Rettifilo Partenza is P1. The race dictator is up 8.61 in Variante della Roggia. race dictator is up 8.96 in Curva del Seraglio. The race dictator is up 8.36 in Curva Parabolica. The race dictator improved his P1 with a 201.320. Wiremu is provisional pole with a 201.246. Dave B Racing is 5th. Dave B Racing is provisional pole with a 200.207. Wiremu in Prima Variante is P2 up 0.10. Five minutes remaining in the session. Wiremu is up 0.59 in Variante della Roggia. Toddy Mustang is 4th up 0.86. Johnny Prince is provisional pole with a 159.029. Toddy Mustang is up 0.78 in Curva del Seraglio. Toddy Mustang is up 0.29 in Curva Parabolica. Toddy Mustang improved his P6 with a 201.514. 2.485 off pole. Chris Butt is P7. Chris Butt improved his P7 with a 202.294. 3.265 off pole. The race dictator in Curva Biasone is 5th up 0.17. The race dictator is up 0.34 in Prima Curva di Lesmo. The race dictator is up 0.24 in Variante Ascari. The race dictator is up 0.14 in Curva Parabolica. Toddy Mustang in Curva Parabolica is 6th. Toddy Mustang improved his P2 with a 159.284. 0.255 off pole. The race dictator in Prima Variante is 6th up 0.11. The race dictator is up 0.48 in Variante della Roggia. The race dictator is up 0.62 in Curva del Seraglio. The qualifying session is now in overtime. The race dictator is up 0.98 in Curva Parabolica. Toddy Mustang is provisional pole with a 158.540. The race dictator improved his P4 with a 200.379. 1.839 off pole. Chris Butt is 7th. Chris Butt improved his 7th with a 201.329. 2.789 off pole. Johnny Prince from New Zealand in Variante Ascari is P2 up 0.22. Broadcast bot is 20th. The race session is at Autodromo di Monza in Monza, MI, Italy. Toddy Mustang is first. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is second. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Johnny Prince passed Toddy Mustang for first. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is P2. The race dictator from New Zealand is third. Toddy Mustang in Variante della Roggia is P2. The race dictator in Prima Curva di Lesmo is third. Toddy Mustang in Curva del Seraglio is second. The race dictator in Variante Ascari is third. Dave B Racing from South Africa is fourth. The race dictator in Curva Parabolica is P3, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing is P4, 1.0 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in Curva Biasone is P2, 0.9 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing is fourth, 0.9 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang is P2, 1.0 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing from South Africa in Curva del Seraglio is fourth, 0.7 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in Variante Ascari is second, 0.5 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing is P4, 0.4 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in Rettifilo Partenza is P2, 0.4 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing is fourth, 0.4 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in Curva Biasone is P2, 0.7 behind Johnny Prince. The race dictator is P4 driving a McLaren, 0.2 behind Dave B Racing. Minutes remaining in the session. Toddy Mustang in second. Curva de Lesmo is second driving a Porsche, 1.0 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing in Curva del Seraglio is P4, 0.2 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand is second, 0.7 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing is fourth driving a Toyota, 0.2 behind the race dictator. Toddy Mustang in Rettifilo Partenza is second, 0.7 behind Johnny Prince. Jason Short from New Zealand in Rettifilo Partenza is fourth, 0.1 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing from South Africa is P5, 0.6 behind Jason Short. Jason Short in Variante della Roggia is P4, 0.4 ahead of Dave B Racing. Dave B Racing is P5, 0.6 behind Jason Short. Jason Short in Curva del Seraglio is fourth, 0.6 behind the race dictator. Jason Short lost fifth to Wiremu. Jason Short lost P6 to Crispa. Wiremu in Curva Parabolica is P5. Best lap is a 2:00.350. 2.162 off the fastest lap. The race dictator in Rettifilo Partenza is P3, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing from South Africa is P4, 0.5 ahead of Wiremu. Toddy Mustang in Prima Variante is second, 0.4 behind Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince was 2.4 faster last lap. The race dictator from New Zealand in Curva Biaso is P3, 0.2 ahead of Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in Variante della Roggia is second, 0.5 ahead of the race dictator. Toddy Mustang passed Johnny Prince for first. Johnny Prince on lap 5 is second, 0.2 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator in Curva del Seraglio is third, 0.5 behind Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince was 2.3 faster last lap. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Johnny Prince in Variante Ascari is P2, 0.3 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is P3 driving a McLaren, 0.9 behind Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince in Rettifilo Partenza on lap 5 is P2, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Johnny Prince was 2.4 faster last lap. The race dictator on lap 6 is P3, 0.7 behind Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince in Curva Biaso is P2, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Guillermo Invariante della Roggia is P4, 1.0 behind the race dictator. Johnny Prince is second, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. The race dictator is third, 0.4 behind Johnny Prince. The race dictator was 7.5 faster last lap. Johnny Prince in Curva del Seraglio is P2, 0.4 ahead of the race dictator. The race dictator was 7.5 faster last lap. The race dictator in Curva del Seraglio on lap 6 is P3, 0.4 behind Johnny Prince. Johnny Prince in Variante Ascari is third, battling the race dictator. Johnny Prince lost third to Guillermo. Guillermo is P3, 0.3 behind the race dictator. Jason Short in Curva Parabolica is P5, 0.2 behind Johnny Prince. Jason Short was 22.8 faster last lap. Guillermo in Rettifilo Partenza is P3. Dave B Racing is 6th, 0.2 behind Chris Budd. Guillermo is third, 0.3 behind the race dictator. Jason Short entering the pits is P7. Johnny Prince from New Zealand in Prima Curva de Lesmo is P4, 1.0 behind Guillermo. Guillermo in Curva del Seraglio is P3, 0.7 behind the race dictator. Johnny Prince from New Zealand in Variante Ascari is 4th, 1.0 behind Guillermo. Jason Short exiting pits. Guillermo in Curva Parabolica is P3 driving a McLaren, 0.7 behind the race dictator. 5 minutes remaining in the session. Johnny Prince in Rettifilo Partenza is P4, 0.3 behind Guillermo. Guillermo in Prima Variante is P3, 0.8 behind the race dictator. The race dictator was 0.6 faster last lap. Johnny Prince in Curva Biasone is P4, 1.0 behind Guillermo. Dave B Racing from South Africa is 6th, 0.2 behind Chris Budd. The race dictator from New Zealand in second Curva de Lesmo is second, 1.0 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing in Curva del Seraglio is 5th. 0.9 behind Chris Butt. Wiremu on lap 8 is P3, 1.1 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing in Curva Parabolica is 5th, 0.9 behind Chris Butt. Wiremu in Rettifilo Partenza is 3rd, 1.1 behind the race dictator. Dave B Racing in Primavera is 5th driving a Toyota, 0.6 behind Chris Butt. Dave B Racing was 0.6 faster last lap. Jason Short entering the pits is P8. Wiremu in Variante della Roggia is P3. Chris Butt from New Zealand in Prima Curva de Lesmo on lap 9 is 5th, 0.4 behind Dave B Racing. Wiremu in Curva del Seraglio is P3, 0.9 behind the race dictator. Jason Short is P7 battling Johnny Prince. Jason Short entering the pits is 7th. Chris Butt is P5. Johnny Prince is P6, 0.7 behind Chris Butt. Chris Butt in Rettifilo Partenza on lap 9 is P6 battling Johnny Prince. Jason Short exiting pits. Wiremu is P3, 1.0 behind the race dictator. Chris Butt in Curva Biasone is P6 driving a McLaren, 0.6 behind Johnny Prince. Wiremu in second Curva de Lesmo is 3rd driving a McLaren, 1.2 behind the race dictator. Chris Butt in Curva del Seraglio is P6, 1.2 behind Johnny Prince. Wiremu is P3 driving a McLaren, 0.9 behind the race dictator. The leader has just finished the race. Toddy Mustang finished 1st. The race dictator finished 2nd. Wiremu finished 3rd. Dave B Racing finished 4th. Johnny Prince finished 5th. Jason Short finished P7. Chris Butt finished P6. Broadcast bot is 9th. The race session is at Autodromo de Monza in Monza, MI. Jason Short from New Zealand is first. 20 minutes remaining in the session. Race start. Jason Short lost P1 to Chris Butt. Johnny Prince from New Zealand is P3. Chris Butt from New Zealand in Curva Biasone is second. Johnny Prince is P3. Chris Butt in Prima Curva de Lesmo is P3. Wyoming Curva del Serralio is fourth. Johnny Prince in Variante Ascari is second. Dave B. Racing from South Africa is fifth. Dave B. Racing passed the race dictator for P4. Johnny Prince in Rettifilo Partenza on lap 1 is second, 0.7 behind Jason Short. The race dictator from New Zealand in Rettifilo Partenza is fifth, battling Dave B. Racing. Johnny Prince in Curva Biasone is second, 0.2 behind Jason Short. Jason Short in Variante della Roggia is P2, 0.3 behind Johnny Prince. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in Prima Curva di Lesmo is 5th, 0.6 behind the race dictator. Jason Short in Curva del Seraglio is 2nd, 0.4 behind Johnny Prince. Toddy Mustang in Variante Ascari is P5, 0.4 behind the race dictator. Jason Short on lap 2 is 2nd, 0.7 behind Johnny Prince. The race dictator in Curva Parabolica on lap 2 is P5, 0.5 behind Toddy Mustang. Jason Short in Prima Variante on lap 3 is P2, 1.0 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing from South Africa in Prima Variante is 7th, 0.8 behind Chris Butt. Chris Butt was 3.0 faster last lap. Jason Short on lap 3 is 2nd, 1.0 behind Johnny Prince. 15 minutes remaining in the session. Dave B Racing in Prima Curva di Lesmo is 7th, 0.9 behind Chris Butt. Jason Short on lap 3 is P2, 1.0 behind Johnny Prince. Toddy Mustang is P4, 0.9 behind Wiremu. Jason Short in Curva Parabolica is P2. Best lap is a 2:01.181. 1.422 off the fastest lap. Toddy Mustang in Rettifilo Partenza is 4th. Best lap is a 1:58.385. Dave B Racing in Rettifilo Partenza is P7 driving a Toyota, 0.6 behind Chris Butt. Toddy Mustang in Curva Biasone is P4, 0.1 behind Wiremu. Wiremu in Variante della Roggia is P4, 0.6 behind Toddy Mustang. Jason Short is 2nd. Best lap is a 1:59.099. 0.714 off the fastest lap. Dave B Racing in Curva del Seraglio is P7, 0.8 behind Chris Butt. Dave B Racing was 0.5 faster last lap. Jason Short is P2, 0.9 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing is P7, 0.5 behind Chris Budd. Jason Short is P2, 1.1 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing is 7th, 0.2 behind Chris Budd. Jason Short in Variante della Roggia is 2nd, 1.0 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing in Variante della Roggia is P7. Best lap is a 2:00.274. 1.889 off the fastest lap. Toddy Mustang in Curva del Seraglio on lap 5 is P3, 1.1 behind Jason Short. Dave B Racing is P7, 0.9 behind Chris Budd. Toddy Mustang in Curva Parabolica is 3rd, 0.7 behind Jason Short. 10 minutes remaining in the session. Dave B Racing in Curva Parabolica is P7, 0.7 behind Chris Budd. Toddy Mustang in Prima Variante is 3rd, 0.5 behind Jason Short. Dave B Racing in Prima Variante is 7th, 0.6 behind Chris Budd. Toddy Mustang is 3rd. Best lap is a 1:57.895. Dave B Racing is P7, 0.3 behind Chris Budd. Toddy Mustang in Curva del Seraglio is P3, 0.1 behind Jason Short. Toddy Mustang passed Jason Short for 2nd. Jason Short is 3rd, 0.1 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing is P7, 0.8 behind Chris Budd. Jason Short in Rettifilo Partenza is 3rd, 1.7 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing in Rettifilo Partenza is P7, 0.1 behind Chris Budd. Chris Budd from New Zealand in Curva Biasone is P7 battling Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in second. Curva de Lesmo is P2, 1.6 behind Johnny Prince. Chris Butt in second. Curva de Lesmo is 7th, 0.7 behind Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang on lap 7 is second, 1.7 behind Johnny Prince. Chris Butt is P7, 2.9 behind Dave B Racing. Toddy Mustang in Prima Variante is P2, 1.9 behind Johnny Prince. The Race Dictator in Curva Biasone is P5, 2.9 behind Wiremu. Toddy Mustang in Prima Curva de Lesmo is second, 0.5 behind Johnny Prince. 5 minutes remaining in the session. The Race Dictator from New Zealand in second. Curva de Lesmo is P5, 2.7 behind Wiremu. The Race Dictator was 0.6 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang from New Zealand in Variante Ascari is P2, 0.2 behind Johnny Prince. Toddy Mustang was 1.6 faster last lap. Toddy Mustang passed Johnny Prince for first. Johnny Prince in Curva Parabolica is second, 0.4 behind Toddy Mustang. Dave B Racing from South Africa in Curva Parabolica is 6th, 1.4 behind the Race Dictator. Jason Short is 3rd, 2.0 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing in Curva Biasone is 6th, 1.5 behind the Race Dictator. Jason Short in second. Curva de Lesmo is P3, 1.9 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B Racing in Curva del Seraglio is P6 driving a Toyota, 2.4 behind the Race Dictator. Jason Short is P3 driving a Toyota, 1.7 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B racing in Curva Parabolica is P6, 2.5 behind the race dictator. Jason Short is P3, 2.2 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B racing in Curva Biasone is P6, 2.8 behind the race dictator. Jason Short in second Curva de Lesmo is P3, 2.7 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B racing in Curva del Seraglio is P6, 2.5 behind the race dictator. Jason Short is third, 2.6 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B racing in Curva Parabolica on lap 10 is P6, 2.6 behind the race dictator. Jason Short is P3, 3.0 behind Johnny Prince. Dave B racing in Curva Biasone is P6, 2.4 behind the race dictator. Johnny Prince is P4, 0.3 behind Wiremu. Dave B racing in second Curva de Lesmo is P6, 2.3 behind the race dictator. The leader has just finished the race. Toddy Mustang finished first. Jason Short finished P2. Wiremu finished P3. Johnny Prince finished P4. The race dictator finished 5th. Dave B racing finished P6. Chris Budd finished 7th. Broadcast bot is 8th.